And we're back to continue exploring our conversations with the 40 under 40 global change leaders here at Change Cultivators. And what an awesome group of leaders these are. Before I get to today, please do follow us, like us, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform as we grow this community of great change leaders. And this season led by our 40 under 40 who are doing some great things. Today's guest, Gilbert A. He joined us from Kenya, and what a great conversation we had. He leads a change consultancy there called Accent Leadership Group, and he's really worked with a ton of leaders, even at a young age, with so much influence and so much work to help them drive higher engagement and productivity of the teams. He's on the adjunct faculty of University in Rwanda. He's written 4 books on leadership so far, with the 5th one, and you'll hear him talk about this, coming up at the end of this year. So much great nuggets of wisdom around change leadership from Gilbert and the vast experience he's had with really helping a number of different companies. So please listen, enjoy Gilbert Angana. Gilbert, good day to you. How are you?
I'm very well, Patrick. How are you?
I am ecstatic. I'm getting a chance to talk to you from across the world, and it's a good day on my end. Hopefully you feel the same.
Yes. It's a very, very sunny afternoon here in Kenya, so it's quite a good day.
Awesome. Well, congrats to you for being selected one of our Change Cultivators 40 under 40 change leaders. You've got such an impressive body of work, but congrats, and thank you so much for allowing our listeners to hear some of your wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you too, Patrick. I think I'm also honored just by the fact that Change Cultivators have actually just considered me as part of the 40 under 40. So I'm really excited to even be on this show to share some of the thoughts that I had and I have along the different lines, especially when you're looking at change leadership.
I love it. Well, we're honored to have you. I know when we did a little chat earlier, there's a quote that stuck in my head that you mentioned, which was, as you need to follow a process as a leader to make change happen, right? Change can be in this abstract thing sometimes as we talk about change leadership, but you literally said, you need to follow a process as a leader to make change happen. Tell us a little bit more about how you see that.
Okay. So many times you see when people look at change leadership, they sometimes, from a general understanding, you feel that it's really something that you do it once and then this is it. But the ideal thing is change leadership is a lifestyle. So it involves continuous change process that you need to inculcate as part of your leadership lifestyle. So from where I see it is, I have devised some 3-step process that I felt that these are actually critical, especially in any change process. And the first one is usually just to tackle the mindset of an individual or the leader or the organization. And in that first step, majorly I usually like to call it the mountain is you, because in a change process, for you to be able to realize the results at the end, then it has to start with you. And there is a process that I call DIE, or it's called DIE. And the first one is really to understand what are the things that are within your control as a leader, the things that are within your direct control as a leader to be able to initiate the change process. Then the I is actually the indirect responsibilities that you have as a leader that then will also facilitate the change process as you go along. And the third one is the aspect of the environmental dynamism that then also can affect the change process. So these are now the aspects that then really as a leader then affects your mindset. Then we have the second step, which is actually the change process itself. And here we're looking at the behaviors that as a leader that you need to strengthen. Then you're also looking at the behaviors that you need to drop in the course of the change process. Then you're looking also at new behaviors that you need to inculcate as a leader, as an organization, so that then you can be able to realize the success of the change process. Then the third step, and of course in this second step, then we have tools that we use. We have some bespoke masterminds engagement that we have with the leaders and organizations to really sharpen that whole transformation agenda. But we also have one-on-one coaching and enterprise coaching that then that we engage and inculcate, so that then we can be able to crystallize the change as a group. And the last stage is actually what we call the desired change outcome. Because, I mean, any change process, there's an outcome. So this is where the leaders are excited about that they have tackled the things as required as per the process. They follow the process. Are they realizing the outcome that it's likely to be there? And here we are looking at the measurement around the client expectations. We are looking at the change behaviors, whether they have actually inculcated in the organization as a culture, and also the financial measure, because a change process has a financial implication. So these are the three-stage process that I use majorly when I engage with clients, with organizations, to really ensure that the whole change process is understood and is inculcated to realize the results that they want.
And you've been so studious about how you've documented the way you think about it, and you've written several books, which we'll touch on in a little bit, and let our listeners find a way to follow you and kind of dig deeper into your things. One of the things that you talked about in your books is this mindset shifts as a change leader, and you can talk about it whichever ones you want. But one that struck me was moving from communication to people to connection to people to be a change leader. So touch a little bit about how you see these mindset shifts, and maybe specifically that one about why it's so important for a change leader.
Okay. I've written the book Engage and Productive basically to help leaders understand some of the 5 critical mind shifts that they need to inculcate to build highly engaged and productive team. And I think the underlined word here is highly engaged and productive team, because in most organizations you find that we have engaged people, engaged teams, but for you to be able to drive highly to have highly engaged and productive team, is there things that you need to do differently. So first of all, I'll touch on what you've talked about in terms of why the shift from communication to connection is important for leaders. One is because we know in our organizations, in our leadership engagements, communication is part and parcel of us. And it's great because we communicate the vision, we communicate the targets, we communicate the direction that we want to go. And that's part of a leader, because if you don't know how to communicate, then chances are that the intended change, the intended result will not be achieved. But for you to be able to achieve the high productivity that many organizations are striving to as an aspiration, then something needs to shift from just communicating to another level of connection. And why I'm saying this, I'll give an example, Patrick, is look at an organization that has what we call their core values. They understand these are their core values in the organization, and they communicate the core values to their teams. Every other time you find that in the organizations, if you go to different places, different walls, you see these are the core values. We love our customers, we love our staff or our people. And one of my clients, he was talking to me about they have changed their core values like 5 times in the last 10 years. So that means that the organization and the leaders are clear in terms of the values that they need to inculcate. But the problem comes in is, why are they not inculcating those values as their lifestyle? When you're talking about we value customers, it is the same leaders who actually then when their employees are coming to them in terms of specific approvals that will support a customer faster, you find that they are the same who push back on various things. So then what is the value for the customer there? So that's why I'm talking about connection. And connection here is about authenticity of the leader. And the leader here is, when you're communicating values, when you're communicating vision, you need to be able to do what you say you will do. So it's beyond the communicating, is now the action bit, so that then your constituent or your employees can be able to connect with you and see for sure this is what our leader is doing, and from an action perspective. Then the second one is about the authentic relationship, because from a leader, if you lead from an authentic perspective, then you'll be able to role model authentic relationships within your team. So authentic relationships in this case is, you inculcate the value of, we do what we say we will do. So it's not about now the leader alone, it's about everyone. We say this is the direction that we want to go.
So I love what you're saying, Gilbert. Talk to our listeners a bit about your philosophy on influencing as a change leader, right? A change leader is not just about, ordering or directing people, but a change leader has to think about their role as an influencer of people. Give us a little context to that.
Okay. So I know in many spaces you find that leaders are told that leadership is influence. And sometimes the discussion around influence is really abstract and confusing in terms of what does it really mean when you're talking about leadership is influence. And many leaders would want to say, yes, I'm influencing my team. But you see, influence is also, it could be a positive influence and it could be a negative influence. But here, from a change leadership perspective, we are talking about a positive change that needs to happen in your team, in your organization. So there are three things that are critical for a leader, especially when you're looking at the aspect of influence. And I talk about it in my book. I talk about it from a shift from authority to influence, because most of the leaders are actually leading from a point of authority unconsciously, because they are in position of leadership. They have somehow positional authority and so on. But to shift that, there are three things that I say are very, very critical. And the first one is the aspect of vulnerability. And many times when I discuss with teams, especially leaders, and ask them, are you really vulnerable to your team? Are you really vulnerable in your leadership? Many leaders will say, yes, I'm vulnerable. I share things openly with my teams and so on. But then I go ahead and do an exercise, a very small, simple exercise, where I first of all engage with their team members and I ask them to list down all the areas that they feel that their leader is hurting them on. So on a block of paper, you find that all their team members will write like almost 10 things that they feel that the team leader is actually doing that is hurting them as their team. Then I come back to the leader in our discussion and I ask the leader to actually think about three things only that they feel that when they do, they actually hurt their team as a result, in terms of their actions. And you find that many leaders struggle to put those three things because they feel that there is nothing that they are doing that really is hurting their teams. And yet, when I show them what their team members have actually written in terms of the things that they do, then they're surprised. And that's the aspect of vulnerability that I'm talking about, that when leaders do not understand how to express their vulnerability, then they keep on hurting their teams and they keep on influencing their teams in the negative direction instead of now influencing them in the positive to enable them to move, to become more engaged and productive. The second aspect that is very, very critical is actually what we talked about earlier in terms of authenticity. And many leaders would want to say, I mean, this is who I am. But in reality, I mean, if you look at how they engage with different team members, you find that there is no aspect of they are not authentic, because there are some team members who they feel that they are good, they engage them well, they support them more, but there are team members that they have already categorized them and they've already created the bias in them that these ones are like out groups. When you talk about leader followers relationship, these are like the out groups. So they're already creating a bias around them. So the aspect of authenticity is not there, and that is what is also killing a lot of engagement and eventually the productivity, especially from a change process. And then the last one is empathy. And I talk about empathy, and many times you find that leaders feel, yes, I'm understanding, I'm engaging my team well, but the reality is the level of understanding. Empathy is like, are you, and I ask them, do you really understand your team much in that manner? And then I give them an exercise for them to be able to look at it and ask them, if you put a sheet of paper and write all the team members that are directly reporting to you, and I ask them, are you able to write the names of their spouses? Are you able to write the names of their children? Are you able to write the things that they feel that these are the things that they are hobbies, their strengths and weaknesses? You find that a number of team leaders actually are not able to do that. So that means that they do not understand their team members. They do not understand their team members. And that's why then the whole aspect of engagement is lost. So those three things are critical, especially from an influence perspective, in driving that change process that leaders want.
So good, so good. So we're talking about your perspectives, which come from your company, your consulting company, but you've also written a number of books. So two quick questions on that. One, how old were you when you wrote your first book?
I wrote my first book when I was 36. So yeah, so I have four books, and then there's a fifth book that is coming out this year. So my first book was in 2018. So one book each year. So my target is just to write just one book each year.
Just one book each year. Yeah, just one. So I could talk to you all day because this is really insightful, and hopefully you and I will get a chance to continue talking. But
Yeah.
I want to be able to close this out. Give us a little preview and give us a little preview of the new book that's going to drop sometime in the next couple of months. Give us a little tease of that, so we can leave our listeners with an idea of what to expect in your next book.
Okay, great. So the book that is coming up on 12th of October this year is called Inside Out, and basically I talk about three reasons why people should be led by you. And this is a very pertinent question to any leader in whatever level of leadership that you're at and whatever orientation that you find yourself. You need to ask yourself, why should people be led by you? And of course, this is out of the discussions that we've had with team leaders in the last 2 years, discussions that we've had with the employees who are in different categories that we've had over the last 3 years. In terms of just understanding, for the team leaders, we ask them, why should people be led by you? You find that a number of team leaders are talking about, because I have an experience, I've seen it all, I've been there, I've done it. And then when we ask the employees in terms of, I mean, what kind of team leader would you want to have? Then you find them, they're talking about a team leader who is kind, a team leader who understands them, a team leader who believes in them, and so on. So we came up with that, and out of that research, then we came up with three things that are very critical. One is people actually need to be loved unconditionally under whatever space that you find yourself, whether it's in organization, whether it's in your home, whether it's in whatever space that you find yourself, that people need to be loved unconditionally. And number two is people want to be valued, because we want to be valued. And then the third one is people desire to be believed. And so these became the three fundamental reasons why people should be led by you. People should be led by you, Patrick, because you love them unconditionally, because you value them, and because you believe in them. And when you do these three things, then you realize the kind of purposeful transformation that will happen in the different spaces that you find yourself as a leader. And that is what we talk about in the book Inside Out.
Awesome. Well, thank you for previewing that. And listeners, make sure you keep an eye out for that along the way. Gilbert, I've got to wrap us up, but thank you for sharing some of your wisdom with our podcast listeners. Congrats again on being one of our 40 under 40 change leaders. And just thank you again for spending some time with our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it.